I know these are broke, but I don't like that.
Well, it looks like we have almost everyone here. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome Gershon Cohen. He is a debate judge from time immemorial. He was my debate coach for many, many years, and he's very kindly loaned his time to kind of go over some of the fundamentals of the debate that you'll be doing throughout the rest of the season. I'm going to hand it over to Gershon, and thank you all so much for coming out.
Welcome everybody to Haines. I'm going to be speaking mostly about public forum debate, not what you're going to be doing this weekend, right? So what you'll be doing the rest of the season. I think maybe would like to start out with asking just if somebody can tell me, what's the difference between an argument and a debate?
A debate is respectful and you're trying to just find new information. You're not trying to just prove your point.
Okay, anybody else?
The debate is logical most of the times, and arguments are usually emotional.
Okay.
A lot of the time, arguments involve like yelling at each other and just being like, "No, that's not right." Why? Because I know it.
Okay, yeah.
Debates are usually also more structured, especially in the debates like these, where they have individual kind of turns, if that makes sense, and they build off of each other.
You're all correct, and it really, more folks coming in. There's some extra chairs over here, if you need chairs. The arguments are, basically verbal conflicts. Hopefully, it stays verbal. But basically, an argument is a conflict, where debate is the art of persuasion, okay, and based on facts, and that's probably the single biggest difference between them. A debate is won or lost on brain power. An argument is often won or lost on bully power, if you will. And so they really are different. Now, you will come out of learning how to debate to be a much better arguer. But it would be my hope that as you do this and learn these skills, that you become a better debater who knows how to argue and not a better arguer. Anyway, you get the point. Right? So I think it's really critical. I mean, I coached for 12 years here in Haines, and I think that it's a really important skill set for a number of reasons. Just very briefly, it's important for civil discourse. We need to be able to talk to each other. We're going to disagree on things. That's just the way things are. But we need to be able to talk about them and listen to each other and actually believe the other person needs to be heard. And maybe we could actually get to a point where we can actually agree on some things as a society. And it's not just about, say, going before your borough assembly and talking about an ordinance or being an attorney or something like that. You guys are going to be involved in discussions over time over gun control or abortion or gender issues or whatever it is, and knowing how to talk to each other and knowing how to be respectful in those situations is really important, and actually will get you to where you want to go more. People are more likely to listen to you and agree with you if you are debating rather than arguing. Okay. It teaches a lot of life skills, reading, writing, doing research, public speaking, learning how to listen. All of these things are skills that come out of becoming a good debater. And so you're going to be doing public forum debate. And probably the most interesting thing about public forum debate, as opposed to the other forms of debate that are done around the state and in other places, like CrossX and Lincoln Douglas and whatnot, when you walk into the room, and this is for those of you who are familiar with it, bear with me. Oh, sorry. Give me a show of hands. How many people have not debated before? Oh, okay, almost everybody. Right? And when I say debate, I mean public forum debate, right? Okay. When you walk in the room for a public forum debate, you're going to flip a coin. And that coin flip is going to determine which way you're going to have to debate. And that to me is one of the most important things about public forum and why I really enjoy public forum debate. Because you have to be prepared to argue both ways. And if you don't develop a case that is strong both ways, maybe you have a strong affirmative case. If your negative case is weak and the coin flip happens and you end up having to go neg, you're not going to have a good time in that round, right? You need to be able to argue either side of the coin. And you're arguing on a resolution. Hopefully the resolution is drafted in a way that it is fair to both sides. They are usually pretty good. Every once in a while you'll come across a resolution that you feel is heavily weighted towards one side or the other, and that's the way it goes. Most of the time the resolutions are designed pretty well so that you can effectively debate either side of the proposition, of the resolution, right? But the fact that you have to do that means that you're going to have to learn both sides. You're going to have to do research on both sides, and you're going to have to write your cases. You're going to have to learn the strengths and weaknesses of both sides. And in doing that, I would hope that you would realize that the world is not quite so black and white as we might like to think sometimes. It's actually mostly gray. There's a few black and white things in this world. Most things I've learned as I've gotten older is, most things are actually kind of gray. And there's pluses and minuses on all fronts, right? So I'm going to go through a lot of just the mechanics here of how you're going to go about doing this, right? You're going to leave here because you're doing a different type of debate just because this is the first meet of the year. But you're going to leave here and you're going to have your first practice when you get back to your hometown. And your coach is going to put a resolution up on the board, right? The resolution is going to be a statement, and you're going to have to dissect it. That's the first thing you do, is you look at that resolution and you go, okay, what are they trying to get us to talk about? There's going to be an affirmative side, there's going to be a negative side. You dissect every word in that thing. And when I say every word, you have to be very, very careful that you don't gloss over things. For example, if something is an and or an or, that's going to have a very different meaning. If it's going to say could or should, very different meaning. If it's going to say may or shall, very different meaning. Whether or not there are commas or semicolons, all of these things are going to really impact what that resolution means and how the debate is supposed to be structured. If you don't carefully dissect the resolution to build your case, you're going to walk in there and your opponent's going to say, excuse me, but my opposing team is not even arguing what the resolution is really about. I've seen it happen, right? And if the judge agrees, you're SOL from the start, right? So that's the first thing that's got to happen, is you've got to spend some time making sure you understand what the resolution is really about. You start to formulate positions, affirmative, negative, pro-con, whatever you want to call it, for and against the resolution. You sit around with your team, you parcel out. You say, okay, I want you to look at this particular aspect of it, you're going to look at this aspect of it, and you parcel it out to different people. You've got a month, basically, until the next term, until you're going to have to debate it, right? So you split it up, and you spend some time and you start working up these different positions that you might like to, that you think might be advantageous for the resolution, and assigning them. Eventually, you're going to get to a point where once you think you've got that established, you're going to write what are called contentions. All right, you're going to have like 2, 3, maybe 4 contentions for your case. Contentions are the points that you're going to bring in forward. Because when you develop your case, what you're going to say is, I'm Gershon Cohen, I stand in affirmative, I'm speaking for the affirmative in this debate of this resolution, and in doing so, here are the points I'm going to raise to support my case. This is why you're going to find that what I'm saying is true, all right? So you develop your contentions, and then you begin to refine them. And as you do that, and you talk to each other on your team, and I really would recommend you work on this as teams, right? And you're within your own school, even though you're paired up with somebody, you should all be working together. As you do that, counter arguments will become apparent. Somebody will say, well, yeah, I kind of agree with you on that point, but if you look at it this way, that could really, I can see where you could attack that point and maybe say that that point's weaker than you're making it out to be. So, these things are going to lead to what are called crossfire questions. Everybody know that term? Everybody's familiar with crossfire? Okay. So, you got to be taking notes while you're doing this, right? Because there could be ideas, there could be, things are going to get said that you're going to go, oh, wow, that's a really good way to attack this contention. I'm going to make note of that. Because one of the things that you're going to want to do, and I'll get into this a little bit more in a little bit, is you want to not only go into your debate round with your case fully developed, you want to go in there with crossfire questions fully developed, right? They may change once you're in the debate and you hear what the opposing team says, but you want to at least go in with some crossfire questions ready to go if you need them based on your case and your interpretation of the resolution, okay? When you do these crossfire questions, you want them to fit your case. You want your crossfire questions, you're going to be asking your opponent a question. You want the answer, you want to structure your question in a way that the answer that they have to give based on the way you formed the question feeds into supporting your case, okay? And the best scenario is to have a series of questions that you say, well, you agree with this, right? And they say, well, okay, I'd agree with that. And we go, well, then if you agree with that, then you'd have to agree with this, right? And you can basically lead your opponent along to where, at the end, they're agreeing with your case, okay? And this is a skill to develop cross-examination, crossfire questions in that way to basically steer the debate the way you want it to go, right? Which is to your side of the proposition. Never ask a question, since I'm talking about crossfire here, never ask a question you don't know the answer to. I can't tell you how many times I've watched kids ask what they thought was a really great question, and the other person turned it around and basically said, I don't know the answer to that, do you? And if you don't have a good way to answer the question yourself, don't ask it, okay? Don't trap yourself. The other way you can really trap yourself in public forum debate, in any form of debate, is by speaking in what we call absolutes. If you don't ever put in your case, and I'm speaking in an absolute right now, but don't ever put in your case, in your crossfire questions, that something always happens. Every time this is ever going on, this happens. Because if you say it that way, and you create an absolute, all your opponent has to do is put up one example of when it wouldn't happen, or didn't happen, or hypothetically wouldn't happen, and your contention fails. Your whole point fails. So you can say, most of the time this happens, Or, you know, this is what we would expect to happen, but don't speak in absolutes because you will trap yourself. And that's one of the things you learn as you do this is how not to give yourself grief, right? How not to trap yourself with your language. You learn how to make your language work for you. So you're going to start with the first speaker is going to get up there, right? You have you have the first speaker, second speaker, you have the crossfires in between, right? The opening speaker is going to start one or two sentences and say, this is me, this is what side I'm on, and here are my contentions. You want to list them for the judge very succinctly, right? You want them to be very clear. You want the judge to know where you're going. And yeah, well, okay, so let me say this. It's very common for people to think that they're supposed to be talking to the folks they're debating against. You can look at them time to time, but you're actually talking to the judge. The other team is not going to just go, oh, wow, you were right. You know, you need to be talking to the judge. That's the person you need to be communicating with and reading their body language. If you present a point, if you present one of your contentions, and you see the judge immediately start to write it down, or even like nodding, or you know whatever, that's something you're going to want to go strong with, right? You need to read your audience, which in this case is your judge, and you can learn a lot about where they want you to go. Now, when the judging, they're not supposed to come in with preconceived ideas, right? The fact that you bring up an argument that they don't like, or that you don't bring up an argument that they thought you should have used, none of that is supposed to matter in public forum debate. The judge is supposed to be there judging your performance, and that's all. Even if they heard a really good point in if they were judging multiple rounds, and they heard another team present a really good argument, they're not supposed to dock you for not bringing up that argument, okay? The judge is supposed to be going by just what you say, and that's all. And not going on their own ideas of what's right or wrong, where the issue should go, or how the issue should be presented, okay? So you list your contentions. You're doing what's called signposting, okay? Which is telling the judge where you're going to go with this debate. And at the end of your opening speech, you connect it all back to, you say, and because of this reason, this reason, this reason, this is why I believe you should be finding for the affirmative in this debate today, okay? To support your points in public forum debate, you use evidence. This just came up. I was with the Haines debaters a couple days ago, and we did a little SPAR debate, and which is just a real quickie debate. You get a few minutes to to analyze something, and then come up with a couple minutes speech, and then it's a 1 or 2 minute rebuttal time, etc. The first thing that happened when I said, okay, you're going to be supporting this and you're going to be supporting that, and the issue was whether or not you think pesto sauce is better on pizza or marinara sauce is better on pizza, okay? SPAR debates are always light topics, right? The first thing that happened was everybody got on their computers. And within a really short period of time, they knew what vitamins were in pesto and what mineral content was in pesto and versus marinara and all these things. And I haven't been coaching I just found out from talking to Hannah, I haven't been coaching since 2014, a long time ago, I stopped coaching here. But when I was coaching here, you didn't have AI. And it actually was troubling to me. I didn't say it to you guys the other day, but I left here and I was thinking, oh my gosh, you guys are in a different world than we used to be in. And you're gonna have, you're gonna Google something, and instead of writing your own points and having to research and find evidence on your points, the screen's just gonna like come up in seconds and tell you, oh, you could say this, this, and this, and here are the points. So, number one, I don't really like that, because I would prefer that you actually do your own writing of your contentions and that you actually do your own research. But I will just caution you, a lot of what you're going to get out of doing an AI search when you're writing your cases isn't going to be true, okay? It's going to be inaccurate, and it might be actually completely false. I had someone not long ago present, we were talking about a legal case, and they sent me an opinion, and they had legal citations at the end of this opinion. And I was curious about one of the citations, because I was not familiar with it, and I looked it up, and it never happened. This person didn't know it. AI had literally generated a plaintiff and a defendant and said, here's the case, and it was decided in this court, in this district. Had never happened. The computer had literally made up the entire thing. So I just hope you will do your own research, and if you're using the computer to help you figure out some of these things, check them, back check them, okay? And make sure that what they're telling you is actually real. Because, well, one thing, you've got to provide your evidence, right? Everybody know that. You've got to bring your evidence to the debate. If your opponent, if you say, I feel this way, and my evidence is there was an article in the New York Times, blah, 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 and they say, can I see that piece of evidence? You have to produce it. You are required to have all of your evidence on sheets of paper so that you can give it to the opposing team. They've got to give it back to you at the end of the debate. But you have to produce your evidence so that you're just not like making stuff up and say, well, yeah, I know, I read this article, blah, blah, blah. So you're going to have to prove your evidence exists and that it's from a good source. Evidence from the New York Times is different than evidence from the New York Post, okay? You want to be getting from a reliable source. You want to get what's called primary source information, right? If somebody wrote a paper, you want to be quoting the original author of that paper, or the legal team that brought the case, or whatever it is, right? You don't want to be quoting someone who's quoting somebody else. That's a secondary source, or worse, tertiary source. You want to be going to the primary source of the information. And like I said, you got to have it all written out, and it's got to be there. When you are speaking, you need to be assertive, but don't be a bully. I used to see, every so often you would see a team that would try to bully their opponents, especially if they felt, that they were, maybe they were seniors and the team they're going up against were freshmen and were much less experienced. And I can tell you, judges won't like it. It's not nice to begin with, but even regardless of that, it's not to your benefit, okay? And certainly as growth as a person, it's not to your benefit. So you want to be respectful. Please, be respectful in this. I'll get some questions at the end, okay? There's an axiom in debate that whoever frames the debate wins the debate. And what that means is you want to be debating your case, okay? You know your case better than the other team knows your case. You know where the strengths are, you know where the weaknesses are. And you want the judge to basically, to find your way. So to the degree you can, you don't want to be talking about the other guy's case. You want to be talking about your case. You want to be the person who frames the discussion, okay? So you have that first speaker who gives the opening, says the contentions. That's basically most of the speech, right? Second speaker, they have a crossfire, the two have a crossfire, and then the second speakers come up. Second speaker will usually is the more experienced person of the pair. The second speaker's job is quite a bit different. The second speaker will reinforce what the first speaker was saying, but the second speaker also is going to respond to what the first speaker said from the other side. And so when you're sitting at the table and the other team is speaking, you gotta be taking notes. You gotta be writing stuff down and you have to be writing, you need to write down what their contentions are, not just the judge, right? Because, I mean, as a judge, I would be tracking what's going on so that I know at the end who I think, should win. But you need to be writing down everything that you're hearing as well, because you aren't going to remember it all if you don't write it all down. And you want to have their contentions in your head so that you can figure out where the weaknesses are and how to go back at them. Okay? You got to be. Well, let's see, I've talked about absolutes. Let's talk about crossfires a little bit more. So you're going to get into a crossfire, what's called a crossfire. The team that spoke first gets the first question. Sometimes you will be in a situation where the other team will not have any questions. If that happens, use up all the time, okay? If you control the crossfire, you're probably going to win the debate, because that's going to impress the judge that you're the one who actually knows what's going on, okay? But according to the rules, you ask a question, and then the other team gets to ask a question. Now, if you're the second speaker, so the other team gets to ask the first question, and that person just starts talking, and it's just going on and really just kind of rehashing their whole case, okay? That's not legal. In that case, it's okay for you to interrupt them and say, excuse me, do you have a question? Because they're not supposed to be able to take the 3 minutes from the crossfire and simply run out the clock by stating their case over again. They're supposed to be asking you a question. And then when you answer that question, as soon as you finish answering the question, you say, okay, I have a question for you. And get the floor back, okay? Take the floor back. Again, if they don't have questions, if your opponent doesn't have questions, or your opponent lets you keep asking questions, that's good for you, do it. But don't bully them into doing it. And believe me, you'll see it happen, where some debaters will just not let you answer, or will just keep, it will not play well with the judge. And at some point, if you really feel like a person's being too aggressive, that's where you can say to the judge, excuse me, judge, I am trying to answer their question, and they're not letting me answer. I guarantee you that will shut them up, okay? Don't bully somebody else, but don't allow yourself to be bullied either. And I'm sorry, I don't even mean to be making this scary or anything, but I'm just saying it happens, right? You get the heat of the moment, people get aggressive, and it does happen where they, they'll just kind of run over you if you don't stand up for yourself. The rules are in your favor that shouldn't happen, and all you have to say is, excuse me, it's my turn to ask you a question. And the person usually will just say, okay, sorry, and you go from there. Every contention that you bring up, or that you say that your opponent brings up, needs to be addressed. Again, the judge is not going into this with any preconceived ideas. So if you bring up a point and the other team does not contest it in some way, then that point stands, as we say. And at the end of the debate, when the judge is tallying up what happened, the judge is going to say, well, they didn't refute this point and they didn't refute that point, so I guess those points are valid. And so that's one reason you need to write down your opponent's contentions, because you need to make sure that you have responded to all of them. And either say, I don't agree with it, or I really disagree with it, however you want to put it, you have to challenge all the contentions. Anything you don't challenge stands. So you've got to respond. As I said, with respect to judging, the judge is not supposed to come in with preconceived ideas. It's not based on what they know or how they would do the debate. It's even if you say something that they know is false, if the other team doesn't catch it, it stands. That's just, for public forum debate, imagine you're sitting in a coffee shop and there's a couple of people doing this thing at this table next to you and you're overhearing the conversation. And that's the basic way that this is supposed to be going. You're just this observer, the judge is just an observer watching this thing play out, okay? And is not basing it on their own preconceived ideas, also because they don't know the resolution as well as you do. If you're arguing about, whether or not the UK should rejoin the European Union, it isn't like most folks in town are thinking about this. You've been thinking about it for a month, right? So the judges really aren't going to know as much as you about what you're talking about. As I said, you want to make it easy for them to understand what's going on. If they're struggling to figure out what your case is about, you're in a lot of trouble. You want to make all your points really clear, really straightforward. You also want the judge to like you. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen people who clearly on the facts presented should have won a debate and they lost because the judge was like, that person was just kind of obnoxious. I'm not going to vote for them. And it happens, and in a way it should happen, because my interest in being a coach all those years was not to train you to be the type of, to be a lawyer who you wouldn't want to see in court, okay? My goal was not to train people to be obnoxious arguers. And really society doesn't need more of that. Being nice to your opponent is also going to reflect well with you with the judge, and that will benefit you in the assessment at the end. So you want to make eye contact with the judge. As I said, you can look at your opponent every so often, but you also want to be watching that judge to make eye contact so that they're going to like you, have a feeling for you, and also so you can see how they're reacting to everything. And then the last thing I'll say about that is that it's kind of human nature that people base their opinions on very simple and often one angle on some issue. In other words, people who, when they go vote, they'll vote because of the economy. They'll vote because of how it's going to affect their wallet, right? Or they'll vote on some moral issue. Or they'll vote because one of the candidates is really big on education and that's really important to them because they were a teacher. Or whatever. You can have 10 different issues out there. Most people vote on one. Whatever is the one that's most important to them, that's the one that's going to just overshadow the other 9, and that's the way they're going to vote. So, as I say, when you're watching your judge, and you see how your judge is responding to the things you say, and you hook into the judge on something, there's a pretty good idea that that's good. That could be enough to win you the debate. All right? And lastly, I just say you want to project confidence. You're going to be nervous. We're all nervous. Public speaking is like the #1 fear in America, they say, right? I've done a lot of public speaking. I've testified at the state legislature, testified in front of Congress and in courtrooms, and I can tell you I still get butterflies when I do it. It's just natural, okay? That's why you gotta be prepared. The better prepared you are, the less nervous you'll be, and the more you'll see, the better job you will do. But you also wanna project confidence to your judge, because it tells the judge in a very subliminal way that you actually know what you're talking about, right? I mean, everything I just said to you for the last half an hour could have been just nonsense. But if I say it in a really convincing way, and I'm really confident about it, there's a better likelihood you're gonna believe me, which means you might be gonna give me the vote at the end of the day, okay? So, at the end, there's a tradition, I don't know how it all started, that you congratulate and thank your opponents for being there. That's great, it's respectful. For some reason, somewhere in the past, people got this idea they were supposed to go up and shake hands with the judge and the timer. I really never understood that. But if it's fine, make the timer feel good. But it's nice to thank the judge. They're putting their time in for you to do, for you to have that event. And certainly if the other team is shaking hands with the timer and the judge, you got to do it too. I guess with that, questions? You had a question?
Yes. Though it's not been in public forum or extant debate like in DDF since I'm a freshman, I have debated and argued with people in the past. And like you said before with the string along questions to get them to agree with my case, I've done that with a certain opponent multiple times and got him to contradict himself very clearly, but they themselves were rather dense and did not even realize it, despite how clear I made it. And there wasn't quite a judge. He kind of was the authoritative figure in the house, despite whether or not the qualifications were there. But he decided he thought that he won, or he was right, because he was incapable of realizing that I made him contradict himself. And I was wondering if that actually ever comes up in these debates as well.
You do not have to convince the other team.
And like the judge.
Oh, the judge?
Yeah.
The judge will, hopefully, the judge is going to see where it went.
I mean, how clear do you have to make it that they contradict themselves? And, if you make it
you
too
can
clear,
say it out. You can say it out loud. If they've you can say in front of the judge. You can say, excuse me, I'm confused now because you just contradicted yourself. A few minutes ago you said this, and now you're saying this. And those two things don't line up.
Yeah.
So which is it? What do you really feel?
I'm not sure how close that would be to bullying, though.
Well, it's not bullying if your attitude and your body language and everything and it's not bullying. You are in a debate, and if you can demonstrate that your opponent is not following a logical train of thought and is contradicting themselves somewhere along the way, that's your job. That's your job because you're trying to get to the truth. Yeah.
Do you have any tips for kind of coming up with those leading questions?
You want the answer? Yes, in that usually leading questions, successful leading questions require very short answers. You want the person to have to answer yes or no to something. But if the question's phrased in a way, and I mentioned this to when I was talking with the folks the other day here in Haines, I don't know how many of you play chess, but there's a term in chess, the Zugzwang. If you're familiar, anybody familiar with that? I know Chisel is, there's a few people who are familiar with Zugzwang. What it is when a move that forces a move. There's no alternative for the opponent. But that move forces another move and another move. And so it's exactly what I'm talking about here for debate. When you ask a question to which there's, do you believe we should beat up babies? Well, no, and then, it's questions like that that you figure out that sequence of questions, well, then you must feel that, and you work it through. And of course, it requires that you can ask multiple questions, but often when you ask a question that has a response like that, the person might be kind of like not even really ready to ask you another question. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you've got to play it. Look, there's a lot of improv. As Tim told you before, there's a lot of it's acting in improv, right? And there, especially in this debate forum where we have crossfires, and you don't know what the other team's going to be coming at you with. There's a lot of improv. You're going to be doing a lot of this off the cuff.
I just want to add to the whole contradiction thing. That's a really good thing to bring up in the final focus, which is the last part of the debate, because at that point you are able to just cleanly state my opponent contradicted himself when they said blah blah blah, but they also said blah blah blah, and because it's in the final focus, they don't really have a chance to rebut it or say you're wrong, and so that can be your last impression to the judge of my opponent clearly contradicted themselves, so therefore they're wrong. That's a really good time to actually bring that up, in my opinion at least.
That can be very true. Thank you. That's very true. But what you did, you triggered a thought. Just keep in mind, you are not allowed to bring up new contention after your second speech. It's against the rules to bring up another contention, and the reason for that is exactly what he was just saying, is that if you bring up a contention after your second speech, the other team does not have time to respond, and that's not allowed. So all of the main arguments that you're going to bring up to support your point of view have to be in your first or second speech. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Well, Sam helped kind of answer it. The person I was talking about earlier, after I did what he said and clearly told him that he was contradicting himself, he then responded to that by saying, oh no, I didn't do that. And then there was no record to do it, so then he could just claim what he wanted, and he wouldn't really listen to me when I said that's not true. So he just got to say what he wanted, that he didn't do that, or he misspoke.
Well, that's why you've got a judge there, and you're not expecting the person you're actually debating with to admit you're right, because they're not going to.
I mean, the thing about misspeaking, he claimed that, and then he kind of just accepted that as fact. So he kind of said I can't really do anything if he just misspoke.
If somebody misspeaks in a debate and admits and says, you know what, I'm sorry, I misspoke before, this is what that's okay. I mean, it's not great, but it's up to the judge to decide how to deal with that. But it's the judge who's going to decide if the conflict was real, if they made a conflicting statement or not. You're not going to get that other team to go, oh gosh, you're right, I totally blew it here. It's not going to happen, right? It's up to the judge to see it and acknowledge it and realize, yep, that other person's case falls apart. Yeah.
Just to add on to that, if you've done debate before, you've probably seen a debate where by the end of it, the two teams are arguing over a single miscommunication that occurred in a crossfire, and they've completely forgotten about all the other arguments in the debate. So if something like that happens, where early on you point out that your opponent misspoke or contradicted themselves, and they say, no, I didn't, you just have to trust that the judge noticed it, spell it out maybe once or twice more, and move on. Because there's more to the debate than that single point. Right? You win debates not just on that one point alone. You have to win by a majority, right? So don't get bogged down in the weeds over minor issues like that. Point it out to the judge, trust them to notice it, and move on.
And then, correct. And in your last shot, it's always a good idea to point out to the judge what is, Judge, in my opinion, this is by far the most important point in this debate. We can, we can argue about all these other things, but this is the issue that really is the most important with respect to this resolution, and that's why you want to sum it up in that last shot as to why you should be given the debate. Yeah.
Oh, what do I do if my teammate misspeaks?
You can, if it's a serious issue, if it's a serious problem, probably the best thing to do, and again, if it's not serious, let it go, don't say anything. But if it's something that you really think you're gonna lose the round on, because the other team, if nothing else, is just gonna jump on it, just say, you know, I just wanna say, you know, I believe, you know, my partner here misspoke. This is what our position really is on
Do I
this.
like interrupt them to do that, or do I like tap them?
Oh, no, you can't do
Quiet
that.
down real quick?
Can't
Or
do
do I do it
that.
at the end of the round?
Yeah, afterwards, you know, you're gonna have a good, you know, you're gonna have more chances, right? If they misspeak in their second speech or something, you know, it could come back up in the crossfire, or it'll come out in the summary, the last shot. You know, you'll get an opportunity.
Am I allowed to like tap them to let them know that they just misspoke?
It doesn't look good.
Alright.
It doesn't look good. You know, you guys need to, you know, yeah, you need to look like you're on the same page.
Alright.
Yeah.
As a note to that, and we'll cover this more in practice, Roger, but like, as a note to everybody, one of the great benefits of having some scratch paper on the desk that you and your partner can share
That's right.
is writing notes to each other. And your partner can read that note during their downtime or when you request downtime from the judge. Having a scratch paper where you can say, hey, you know, restate this or redo this, super effective, simple, easy way to communicate without revealing to your judge that you made a mistake.
Well, and thanks, you just
Yep.
triggered another thought there. So let's say your partner is in crossfire with the opponent. If you hear of something that you think, oh my gosh, that guy just said something here that we can tear to shreds, write it down, and you can pass that note across the table. You can definitely move that note across the table, and if your partner sees you move a note across the table, they should probably read it, right? If they think that you're actually taking a chance of interrupting their train of thought, it might be something worth looking at, you know, just glancing down at it, because maybe they saw something that you weren't catching. Yeah.
Based on what he said before, you told him that you could like correct your partner if it's really important, but do you mean after your opponent tears it to shreds or before they have the chance to do that?
Well, it would probably be after, just because of the timing of the sequence of the debate, right? I mean, if the opponent doesn't pick up on the conflict, don't say anything about it. If they pick up on it and they go, oh, wait a minute here, look what you said here and what was said 2 minutes ago in your opening statements, then you might need to deal with it.
Yeah, but what if the judge is the one who like, mostly picks up on that?
Well,
like, can they be the one to like deduct points if they see the like connection, even if the opponent doesn't?
no, the judge is not. The judge is supposed to be basing their decision on your exchange with your opponent.
So even if you contradict yourself, but the opponent doesn't point that out, they can't really do anything?
That's correct. They're not supposed to be judging you based on how they would run the debate. They would, I mean, I'll watch a debate and I'll go, oh, well, you should have brought up this point over here. I can't judge this team down because they didn't bring up something that they should have, that I saw was gonna be a good avenue of attack.
No, I mean the people who
Well, even if
did
it's
like the people who contradicted themselves. Like, can the judge not downgrade the people who contradicted themselves?
They shouldn't if the other team doesn't point it out. They shouldn't. If the other team doesn't point it out, it's not supposed to be a problem in the judging. Anybody else?
Is the judge ever allowed to like talk about anything we say?
During the debate? You mean?
Like
Or-
like at the end of a round or something?
No, judge is not supposed to talk at the end of the round. And you thank the judge and you leave the room. The ballots are not seen because it would be, every once in a while, you'll find a judge will not understand that and will do that. They go, oh, you know what, you should have really brought up this thing. That's not fair. because what they're doing is basically coaching in the middle of the tournament, and that's not fair to the other competitors, okay? So if you're a judge and you're judging 3 or 4 rounds, you do not share those ballots. I mean, the result will come up on the board as to who won and lost, but you don't share the details until everybody gets their tab sheets at the end of the tournament.
Before you mentioned sliding across the table, and this might be a bit nitpicky, but do you mean like a table where you can like see the legs, or a table like yours? Because that could be really good for like cueing your partner in on stuff or giving them messages.
No, usually with the way, what you'll find in the room is that it'll be 2 tables, like these 2 tables. That'll be, sit there like that, you'll have your team will be at this table, that team will be that table, the judge will be at a table back here. And yeah, usually you can see their legs under the table. But yeah, it's totally acceptable for you to pass a note, over to your partner, to communicate with your partner. That's fine. You're a team, you know, and you may be, you know, while your partner's up there speaking and trying to focus on speaking, you're listening, and you're you think of something that needs to be done differently, or something that the opponent said that you want to hit on. Write it down, and very short, big font, and pass it across the table so that your partner gets a clue as to what you're talking about. Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. 45 minutes on public forum debate. Hope that was worthwhile. If you have more questions, I'll be here tonight, tomorrow, and have fun with it. I mean, you're not doing PFD. You're doing the, it's more of a spar debate type thing. So they're just really kind of fun debates this tournament.
When are they going to post the the debate topics?
It'll be at 7:15. So you guys have about 25 minutes.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
I just want to say that was very well said.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys probably have dinner or
Interesting side.
I think. Alright. I'm sure you all just had the most educational almost an hour of your lives. We've got a little bit of time before we're going to be doing our practice debates. We've got a little bit of downtime. Meet back here a little bit before 7:15 here in the library. Okay? All right, go be really. Yay. Thank you. I saw many
Okay, let's get there.
It might be good to get me
Let
out
me
of
move
that
this.
shell, but also I know I feel I mean, maybe, but I know I'm really, when it comes to young stuff, I really don't commit myself to that between the time commitment that debate is and the fact that it does kind of like bear on me emotionally. It is, I do respect it. If I had another few years of high school, I would be diving into debate right now. That's for sure. And maybe in 3 years, I would be ready to tackle it.
when you're in your 20s.
Yes, exactly. Then I'll be able to.
You're selling yourself just short, but that's whatever.
I mean, I
know thyself. I mean, that's okay.
I think just know that you would be brilliant, but it's not where your heart lies. I cannot speak to you deeper than your heart. So
I appreciate it. I think it would be a whole new journey.
Well, that's actually the best, because you've heard your coach say you'd be brilliant.
That
You
is-
haven't
you
done
don't
it,
even
so
need to
now
do
you
it.
It's great to hear, exactly.
You did great.
Yeah, no, that's all I need to know.
Um,
Hypothetically, I did great, so I can just kick back.
no, I don't think you guys need to stick around. We're just going to be doing like informal practice debates, so they'll be able to time themselves.
Yes.
I have a big group of people that may still be doing theater games in the middle school gym. Would you mind checking in with them and just letting them know that
They can be done whenever.
that they can
yeah.
be done, and Haines people similarly. So
I will,
yeah,
yes.
I hope they're done by now. They were having a lot of fun when I left, so I don't know if they're still playing
Okay,
freeze.
I gotcha. I'll check on them. And also, wait, what are the times for tomorrow morning? that
So
that needs to be
tomorrow,
presentation.
yeah, so tomorrow, the first debate round starts at 9. Anyone who can be here, I'd be really grateful because we're gonna need timers.
Yes.
But then, yeah, tier 1 starts at 10 a.m. And I'll try and remember to share this with all of you so you have a digital copy.
Nice.
But, yeah.
Good.
I think there's still some ones on physical copies out on that table that Yorona and I were at.
No? Brilliant.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, if you see any other names, people, I guess that would just be Kyla and Leah.
Yes.
They are welcome to leave if they are ready to head home.
That's
I'll be in the computer lab if anybody needs me.
Good luck.
Yeah?
Are you here tomorrow morning, Gershon?
I think I'm coming in the afternoon and going through the evening. I don't think I'll be here first thing, but I'll come in for the second round of debate. Do you have a schedule?
Yes, you can take this one.
Oh,
You can keep this, and I can, if you want me to share it with you digitally, I can as well.
that's
Okay,
fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate both you and Tim coming in, and the fact that I didn't have to run any workshops now. I'm quite pleased with. So, I mean, I guess I have to help them with the practice debate, but I can do that. So.
Do you need any help with the debate tonight?
So I think what I'm just gonna do is have them, like, I'll count off 1, 2, assign sides, give them half-hour prep, and then I'll, 1, 2, 3. If you're number 3, you're judging. Have them like spread out throughout the room, do that, and then they'll come back, and then I'll try and remember who was who and reassign. But I haven't quite figured out the brilliant mathematical trick for the second round to make sure that I'm splitting people up properly. But I'm sure it'll come to me in a moment. So.
Okay, I might stick around for a little bit. Just
You're
kinda
welcome to
curious
stick around,
hear-
yeah.
I'm curious to see.
Yeah,
if
I'm
some
giving
of
them like a
some of
really-
them are clearly into it.
Yeah, I'm giving them a really fun, frivolous resolution that they can.
What is it?
It's an old meme from when I was in college. It is easier to defend yourself against 100 duck-sized horses than it is 1 horse-sized duck. I've got some
Okay.
really serious ones for them tomorrow
Okay.
about like the economy and all of that, but I'm like at 7 o'clock at night when they've like some of them have been up all night, I'm gonna give them something silly so that they can like, for the ones, because some of them are a little scared.
I want to
so
hear that.
I'm excited about it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right,
yeah.
I'll stick around for a little bit.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm just in the computer lab working on tournament stuff if you need me or
Okay.
anything, so, yeah. Hi. Your little guy is so delightful. Oh my goodness, his enthusiasm, he just like, sometimes he's just like vibrating. He's like, I've got an idea. I'm like, okay. Oh, he's great. Yeah, I'm so excited. I think you're gonna do debate. Yes, that's great.
Well,
Yeah, we should be done. Yeah. Yeah, and then, yeah, tomorrow, yeah, he needs to be here like a little bit before 8:30, because that's when we announce the topic. He's got half an hour to prep, do all his research, and then, yeah, we do need, if you're available to judge, that'd be great. I'll make sure you're. They're pretty short. I think they'll probably be done by like 9:30-ish. So, yeah, they're very short. It's like a 20-minute debate with, some adding time, so. Absolutely, yeah, and then, yeah, he's got a bunch of next day, but, yeah. He's great, I love it. Awesome, well, thank you. Yeah, good night.
Hi everyone, this is the last call for bake sale goods. If you want to get some goodies and sweet treats, some midnight snacks from the junior class here, go on down to the cafeteria. They're going to be closing up. So they'll be closing up momentarily. Thank you. Quick.